Alright guys, today we're going to go over what all went down at Kalashnicon. Overall, awesome experience. Loved every minute of it. Couldn't have been more fun. Extremely difficult. Super hard competition, but that was their goal of it. They said when we got there that they designed it to be the hardest competition they could, really push our limits, and they definitely did that. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to break down each stage that we did. There were a total of 6 stages. We were on squad 1, so we went through the stages in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were, I believe, 10 of us on our squad. We had a really neat squad. 3 of them were Russians. All 3 of them spoke fluent Russian. It was really neat, and they were really cool guys to talk to. It was really cool to get to shoot AKs with a bunch of Russians and everybody's screaming Russian around you. It was just really fun. Overall, the rules were pretty basic, straightforward. It's a pretty casual event, not super strict. The biggest curveball is that you had to retain empty magazines, which screwed me up all over the place because I'm not a competition shooter. I don't shoot sport shooting, race guns, anything like that. I know it's not a normal rule to have to retain empty mags at these things, but that's what they did for this one. So you're using your dump pouch 24/7. I don't like that because it creates training scars. If you're in a position where you have to do an emergency reload and time is a factor, you're not going to care what happens to that empty mag. If you survive the encounter, you pick it up and go from there. That's what makes an emergency reload. So anything where you're on the clock and speed is an issue, you shouldn't be trying to do tactical reloads. Tactical meaning retain the magazine. And it really, like, it caused me to mess up 3 times. 2 times on the first round and once on the 4th round. The way I've always trained and the way pretty much everybody has is if you have to do an emergency reload, if you're doing a handgun, rifle, it doesn't matter. You're hitting that mag release while your other hand's going for that fresh mag. Your new mag's going to be coming up to your gun while the spent mag's on its way to the deck. And then after you get back on target, re-engage, you holster, you go grab that empty magazine. But that's not what, we weren't allowed to do it that way. So we had to retain them. And that's something I had to say in my head through the entire round to remember, don't drop the mag, don't drop the mag, don't drop the mag. I dropped it 3 times. And the first time where it happened twice was really embarrassing, and you're going to see why. But I'm not going to edit this to make me look good. I'm going to show you everything I did wrong and show you what I learned through it. So let's go ahead and jump into the first stage. Stage 1 consisted of carrying 2 40-pound 50 cal cans. You had to pick up the 2 40-pound cans, run down range, drop them in a box, run back to the firing box, engage each rifle target twice. Then you had to run back, retrieve the cans, drop them, go to handgun, and then hit each handgun target each time, including a Texas Star that didn't only spin, but it swung back and forth while it spun. I think one guy in our squad hit all targets on that stage. I certainly didn't. I think I hit 2, maybe just 1 while it was actually swinging, but you'll see here in just a second, we'll find out. So like I said, I dropped the ball horribly on the first round, and it was entirely my fault. My rifle had been giving me issues last week. If you've watched any of my series on the WBP 556 that I built, it has run phenomenally. I put a K&S piston in it. First 2 or 3 times I shot it, it did fine. I took it out last week before the competition just to make sure everything's still working, and it would not cycle. It would not run at all. I had to pretty much shut off the gas entirely. I'm sorry, turn it up all the way, and just dumped oil into the gun and lubed everything to death before it would finally run. So I ordered a spare bolt carrier group and piston that I could throw in there, but it took forever to ship, and it didn't get delivered until I'd already left for competition. So I didn't have that spare bolt carrier group. So I had no idea if this gun was going to run. So I was stressed out for the first round. I was sitting there just praying this gun was going to actually cycle when I got up for my first round. And it did. It ran all day. I didn't have a single malfunction. It was awesome. But I'd stressed myself out so much that I forgot to put loaded magazines in my belt. I put 2 empty AK magazines in my primary double stack magazine pouch in the front. And those, of course, were the first 2 magazines I grabbed for the stage. And like I said before, it's instinct. If there's an empty mag in your hand and you are in an emergency reload situation, yeet that sucker into oblivion. Don't worry about trying to stuff it back into a pouch or a dump. So that's what I did. Grab the first magazine, empty, yeet. Second magazine, what is going on? Yeet. Third magazine, all the way in the back of my belt, because I didn't think I'd actually need a third magazine for any of these. Grab that, and we'll finally get going. At that point, everybody behind me is yelling, pick up your mag, pick up your mag. And I was like, oh, crap. So I turn around, and I have to find the mags, which are green in tall grass. So that killed my time trying to find those. It took me like 10 seconds to retrieve them. That sucked. But I got through it, and I did decent with that stage. So let's take a look at that one. Okay, here's the start of stage 1. Go back and grab the weights. Run, forced run. Deposit the weights in the circle. Run back, and here's where I dropped the ball. Realize I don't have any loaded mags. Throw that one. Throw that one.
You gotta hang on those mags, man.
Whoops. Realize my horrible mistake and try and clean up the mess.
The other one's outside the box.
Can't for the life of me find the second magazine. They help point it out. There it is. Gun's loaded. Now I can start shooting.
We need 2 hits per, brother.
I really should have gone prone in this position. After stressing myself out and running back and forth, my heart rate was pretty high. Oh, what an awful stage this was. Those were at about 100 yards. I think they were 6-inch targets. I'm not entirely sure. Stage clear the gun. Run to retrieve the weights. And redeposit the weights and switch to handgun. Now, I usually shoot handgun a lot farther than that. So my 0 was farther out than these targets were close. And they're very small targets, so I didn't know where my hold was. So I was having trouble hitting them. Now, if you watch in the second stage, the targets are about twice as far away, and I run through them very quickly compared to this, because I know where my 0 is. So, moral of the story is know where your holds are on your handgun dot. And then this nightmare. All right, stage 2. Stage 2 was the wall. We had to start the round by climbing over a rock wall type pegboard, and we had to vault over it. We had to run 50 yards through the woods, give or take, on a trail. We had to mount up on a hedgehog, which is like those big cross-shaped beach armor tank traps you saw on the beaches of Normandy. We had to mount up on that, and we had to engage all of the rifle targets, 2 shots each. We had to get up, move to the second position, about another 50 yards down, engage, I believe it was 9 more rifle targets down there, 2 shots each. Then we had to run all the way back to the wall. We had to run around it, crawl under it, run all the way back to the final set of targets, and re-engage those last 9 targets with handgun, 1 shot each. So that one I did decently with. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one.
Stand by.
All right, second stage, here we go. You know, that wall looked a lot taller in person, a lot more intimidating, but it wasn't too hard to get over at all. There were some rather large guys out with us, older guys, that still managed to get over it. I was pretty impressed.
You have to be touching.
Here we arrive at the first position, mount up on the hedgehog,
2 shots, each
hit
piece of
the
steel.
5 targets out in the woods. Reposition to hit targets. They specifically placed the targets so that you couldn't see them without having to move around. I want to say these targets were about 50 to 75 yards. Run up to the next set of targets. Have to engage while standing. Stage clear the gun. Run back to the board. Slide into
Lights
home.
on.
Look how that flashlight turns on. That's why you need a light cap or stop using tape switches. Run on back all the way to the end stage. There, we engage the ones on the right with a handgun. And engage targets front with the handgun.
All right.
Notice I remember to retain mags this round. All right, stage 3. Worst stage. Hated it. Absolutely hated shooting it. Hated the idea of it. Hated every possible aspect of stage 3. What it consisted of was 3 shooting positions, a large spool. The second was a large tractor tire, and the third was open field where you had to step between 5 different shooting boxes. The rules of this stage were that you could only have 1 magazine on your person at any time. You had to leave your loaded magazines on the bench at the starting box. You would grab 1 mag, run to the first shooting position, engage the 5 rifle targets, and then run back for a fresh mag when you needed it. You had to drop that mag, pick up the new one, and if at any point you had more than one magazine in your possession at a time, you were DQ'd. Nobody got DQ'd, so that was good. The problem was, one, when you got to the second position and the tires, you were shooting through these tires, and it was obnoxiously loud because your muzzle was inside these giant tires, echoing all that sound right back into your head. And no amount of hearing protection helped with that at all. I mean, my ears were ringing. It was difficult though because all of the targets were in super tall grass to the point where two of the targets weren't even visible from the shooting positions. So what you had to do was you had to look for the slightly visible hanger frame that they were on and then just start lobbing rounds through the grass until you hit something. It was extremely difficult for everyone. 2 or 3 guys actually made it all the way through that one without missing any, and I don't know how they even saw it, but that one was awful. I did not like that. Not appreciated. 0 of 10 stars. But let's take a look. All right, stage 3. No magazines on me. Retrieve the first magazine. You have to remain behind or touching the spool. And as you can see downrange, all the targets are in the shaded areas, next to impossible to see. So we're really just looking for the orange hangers. Now you have the option of when you want to reload. A lot of us chose to reload when we finish the first position instead of running up to the tire, using whatever rounds we have left and having to run back twice as far for the reload. That helps save some time. There was a lot of repositioning on that spool, trying to look around where you had to hit. One of the targets you had to like shoot through the tire from the spool. It sucked. Not sure why we panned out when I ran back for the next magazine, but oh well. Moving up to the next position, reloading, and start hunting for the targets again. I finished the tire stage, but I did not make it to the final shooting box stage, which is better than some did, so I'm not too disappointed in that. Not the best camera work right here, but we'll let it slide.
All the way right and in one. By the big tree.
You can kind of see some of the targets from where he is now. Must have seen a bird. And running back for another mag. And I timed it. All right, stage 4, my favorite. The stage they just called Send It. It was the long distance shooting. The rules were very straightforward. You have an inclined shooting bench that you have to lay down on. You run from the starting point up to the platform about 25 yards. Go prone, load your gun, and start engaging. We had, I believe it was a total of 8 targets. There were 6 silhouettes on hangers, the first 3 of which were at 100 yards. The next, I believe, was 150, then 200, then 250. The 250 was in really tall grass and very hard to see, so it was one of those deals where you have to start lobbing through the tall grass and just hit it, hopefully. I struggled to find that one. You'll see that here in a minute. I could not find that because it's completely non-visible. So thankfully, the ROs were very helpful and were spotting for us through the entire courses, calling our hits at distance and helping us find targets because they knew how hard it was to actually locate them. So that was nice. After you get through the 6 silhouettes, there was a gong at 300 yards, 400 yards, I think. Yeah, 400-yard gong. I don't know the size of it. I know it was about the size of my center dot in my EOTech. So whatever size you would say that is, I guess those probably have like a 2 MOA dot in them or something. So I don't know. It's an EXPS 3-4. But it took me 2 or 3 shots to hit that one. But I actually did the 600-yard gong first. The 600-yard gong was hanging in the trees and it had a big red flashing light indicator. And each of these courses or stages were limited to 180 seconds. And since I struggled finding the silhouettes, I really wanted to hit the 600-meter or 600-yard gong just so I could say I got to shoot it or shoot at it. So I actually did that before going down to the 400-yard gong, and I got it in the first shot. So that was really cool. I put it right on that 600-yard marker on the EOTech, the 4th dot down if you have the Dash 4 model, and smacked it first shot. I was so happy. It didn't matter which order you hit the targets in, so they didn't care. But I actually ended on the 400-yard. So let's watch that one. All right, send it stage. This is my favorite. Run forward, get on the platform, and you're allowed to load. That platform was too small in my opinion. Just trying to stretch out. I was hanging over the tail end, which you're not allowed to do. So first we start working through the silhouettes, struggling to find some of those.
That's a hit. We're missing one silhouette though. The one right over the tree leaf. Over the tree leaf? There you go.
There, you already hit that one. The one right, next one
it's
right.
to the right of it, down by the trees.
Over here? Nope. Just off the right of the one you just shot. Nope, just to the right of that.
Barely to the right. It's further.
So after I find that last silhouette, I transition to the 600.
Okay, you got the 600. There's a gong down there in the meadow.
And then I make my way down to the gong. Got that one too. Here's a close-up on the 600. If you look carefully at that white square in the center, you can see the indicator light go off as I hit it. I'm surprised we can see that. Stage 5 was the riot shield. That was not something I was expecting to do. We had to do a shoot house with a riot shield in one hand, and your gun had to be supported by the riot shield, which was awkward as can be. My buddy was running an RPK and trying to do a shoot house with a shield and a light machine gun. It sucked. He was also using a Tokarev as a sidearm, so he was hurting that day.
No, this is gonna suck.
I want a nice job.
There were a total of 10 hostile targets and 10 hostage targets. As you go through a shoot house, obviously, don't shoot the hostages. You run through each target twice with your rifle, then deposit your rifle in a storage box or storage barrel. Then you have to run back. There are 4 random ammo cans. You open them up, and they each have a randomized objective in them. The one I picked out was shoot every target once in the head, including hostages. So I read it, I understand. I go back in. You have to do the second stage with the pistol. But I'm so pre-programmed not to shoot hostage targets that I started skipping them. So thankfully, my squad mates started yelling, every target, every target. So I went, doubled back, and hit all of the hostage targets. All right, the shoot house. This one was challenging but fun. Now, the shoot house was a big circle. You can see that wall in the middle. You have to work your way around. Everybody else went from left to right and then did the front half. I'm the only one that just made one big circle, and it saved me time from doubling back, or not having to double back, I should say, like they did. I don't know why nobody else did that.
He's doing what I expected the other guy to do.
I can only assume that the pattern I worked through is what the RO was referencing. All right, here's me getting my assignment to shoot the hostages in the face. And here is what being trained for 10 years not to shoot hostage targets does, where I just don't shoot them. And then people start to remind me, hey, you're supposed to shoot the hostages. So I double back, start shooting hostages. The rule was your handgun had to be supported off the shield as you shot, and that made it very difficult. I kind of tried to brace the bottom of the shield off my knee as I did it to give me a steady shooting platform. At the end of this one, I ended up missing 2 hits on rifle and 2 hits on pistol. The 2 hits on rifle were still on the torso, but they were outside the center mass box, so they didn't count. The 2 headshots I missed on pistol, I just missed evidently, or they went into the torso area, I'm not sure. And here we see the result of me dropping another magazine, because instinctively, empty magazine goes on the ground in an emergency reload situation. But I remembered it. I went back and grabbed it. You don't get a penalty unless you take a shot before retrieving the magazine you dropped. If you pick it up before you shoot again, you don't get a penalty. Stage 6 was the jungle run. Very straightforward. It was one of 2 stages that was rifle only. The other one was send it. Pretty simple. 3 shooting positions in the woods. Run to each position. Engage each rifle target twice. Difficult to see targets, but not impossible. When you got to the end, there were 2 that were very difficult to see, and I missed those 2. But other than that, that wasn't bad at all. That's probably the easiest stage there was. Let's take a look at that one. All right, jungle run, final round.
Stand by.
All right, jungle run, final round. Arrive at the V for the first position. 5 steel targets at 150 yards, buried in the woods. Finding them is the hardest part. You have to move around a lot. 2 shots each. Actually, I'm mistaken. This was the one where they broke a target earlier in the day. There were actually 4 targets here, and you had to shoot one of the 4 targets 4 times and the other 3 targets twice. So that was kind of interesting. advance to the second position. This weird branch here, you have to rest up on it. Repeat the same target pattern as the previous stage. Realize I did not load a fully loaded magazine that time. Had to reload, not the end of the world. This stage went a little smoother because I at least knew where the targets were from the previous stage. Run to the final position. Have to support off this tree, which really sucked because there's no good way to brace, and you're having to brace on the side that your charging handle's on. Those targets were at 300 yards. I hit the first one. I had trouble hitting the second one, and I never even could find the third one. I missed 2 on this one. Finally, I just timed out. Pretty sure half of our squad timed out on this one. One more reload to try and save it. So what did I learn? I learned what I already knew, is that cardio is always the most important thing out there. You cannot run enough. So if you're not fit, you're going to die. Go put your gear on and run, climb, hike, whatever. Just do it. It's fun. Make exercising fun. I learned the importance of a light cap and why guys don't run tape switches on white light much anymore. It will give you away, and it's very easy to bump when you're actually moving and not out on the flat range. So I probably won't ever run another tape switch on a white light. It's just kind of a necessity for how my rifle's set up, the limited rail space, but it definitely has its hiccups. Something really interesting to see was there were 2 guys running Galil Aces on our squad. One was a 5.56 and one was 7.62, and both of them malfunction every single stage. The 7.62 guy had more trouble than anybody. He is getting 2 or 3 malfunctions a stage, and it wasn't because the rifle was failing, but it's, in my opinion, a huge design flaw, and it's the reciprocating charging handle. All the different shooting positions we had to go to and how he had to brace it, he was snagging his charging handle while it was cycling. So it was causing failures to feed. He was either getting it caught on barricades. He was getting it, the first time it happened, it was on his own thumb. It smacked him in the thumb. And a lot of times they were getting caught on their own slings because that charging handle is so prominent on the left side, it was just causing nothing but malfunctions. So my hatred for the Galil Ace is justified, I think. I can't stand those things. They're so hideous. But, I mean, there's a reason they use them for competition. If you're not going to be doing cover shooting and have to have a slinged rifle, it makes sense they are reliable guns when you don't add any variables into the equation. So there were guys with race Galils and stuff like that from 3-gun matches, and it's just interesting to see the differences when you put real world scenarios in sport guns together. So that was interesting to see. So that wraps it up. Really good time, really fun. Thanks to all the guys that put put it on, all the work they put into it, especially all the ROs out running back and forth with us through every stage. I know, I'm sure it got tiring in that heat. Uh, our RO asked to not be on camera and remain anonymous, so I'm not going to name him, but he was a really cool guy, really helpful, and just a lot of fun to work with. So big shout out to you, random citizen. But that's all I got for you guys. I learned a lot that day, and glad I did it. I plan on doing it next year. All right. See you guys next time.